Tampa General Hospital and USF Health, Morsani College of Medicine are bringing the power of academic medicine to Palm Beach County and the Treasure Coast. For nearly 2 decades, Tampa General has been ranked as one of the nation's best hospitals. And for over 50 years, Tampa General has been Florida's leading academic health system. Learn more about their growing network of physicians at tgh.org/the Palm Beaches. Welcome back to the Palm Beach North podcast, brought to you by our friends at Tampa General Hospital. My name is Noel Martinez and I am your host. And today we're talking early childhood development with Madeleine Thakur, President and CEO of the Children's Movement of Florida. Her work focuses on ensuring that every child in Florida has a chance to reach their full potential. Today we're going to talk about the Children's Movement's mission, some of their amazing programs, and their vital policy work, which is really making a difference in the state. Madeleine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here in North Palm Beach.
Oh, welcome all the way up north. We were just talking about that. So let's talk a little bit about the mission. Let's start with the foundation of the Children's Movement. Tell me about the mission and about the important work that you guys are doing.
Absolutely. So like you said, we are focused on that strong start for Florida children. And we do not serve families directly. We do not have programs serving families directly. We're an advocacy organization. So we're focused on the policies and the investments that help each child thrive. And, this means a lot of different things. What do children need in those 0 to 5 years? We believe there's sort of 3 key pillars. One is high quality, stimulating, nurturing early learning opportunities. 2 is access to healthcare and a medical home. And 3 is parents who are supported in their workplace and in society.
So talk to me a little bit about your programs. With that mission in mind, tell me, what are you guys currently focusing on right now?
Yeah, so everything we do sort of falls into 4 buckets, I could say. One is legislative engagement. We want every person who walks into the Capitol to make decisions to understand that 80% of brain growth happens by the age of 3, 90% by age 5, and therefore the kinds of things we can invest in make a difference in those years. Number 2 is business engagement, because it is not just asking our policymakers to invest more. Not everything just takes more money. Some of it is mindset. Some of it is what is the role of employers in supporting young children. Then community engagement, because for us to be the ones who get to walk into the Capitol to ask for a particular investment or a particular policy change for what happens in our preschools, we want to know that we're informed by what's on the ground, that we're talking to parents, that we're meeting with the teachers who are working with our youngest children. And so community engagement is a huge piece of that. And then the one sort of direct service that we do is we created and manage the Reading Pals program that's now in 20 or 21 counties across the state, run by 15 local partners. And that is about helping to support children in pre-K through 3rd grade with a one-on-one or 2-on-1 mentor who helps them develop their confidence and develop that early literacy.
And that's that program's in schools all over the state, correct?
All over the state.
All right. So talk to me a little bit about, it's clear that your programs have a huge reach and are really making an impact. How do you measure success?
Our work is all about relationships. So have we been in every corner of the state to meet business leaders, teachers, and parents? Have we made progress in the legislature? Is there additional funding coming in? Have there been changes made in how we support healthcare and early learning programs? Some people think about this as, they start learning when they get to kindergarten. Not so. We need to be making those investments in what we call the early learning years, which is 0 to 5, before they get to kindergarten. And so measuring, what policies have changed, what investments have changed, and then making sure that we are reaching people. We're called the movement because we know it takes more than just our small staff of 10 to get this work done. We need to continually bring new ambassadors into the work.
So talk to me a little bit about advocacy, right? So you've mentioned it a few different times. What is the children's movement approach in influencing legislative change?
It is all about relationships. What we have found is we all grew up in families. We all live in communities, and there is so much we have in common. And you often, when you think about advocacy or an advocacy organization, there's sort of this image of like rah rah at the Capitol, like shame on you, whatever it is, where we're fighting for something. And my own view is that our words matter. And if you're looking for a fight, you're probably going to get one. We're looking for a collaboration. So we want to build relationships with our legislators. We want to be able to call them and share what we know. Hey, we heard this from a parent. We've been talking about the need for more families to have access. We just heard from several parents in your district who have not been able to go back to work after having a child because they don't have a place to make sure that their child's getting early learning and sort of making those connections. And so part of the way we do advocacy work is we're approaching our elected leaders with a certain philosophy, and then we're also helping everyone in our network embrace that philosophy, that it's not like, oh no, they might not want to hear from me, or, it's really, you hold the key. These folks who've been elected, they want to do right by their community. And if they don't know your story, they cannot carry your story to those rooms where they're making decisions. And so helping people to understand that makes them approach advocacy differently instead of thinking, oh no, I don't want to cause trouble. It's not about causing trouble. Your story is what so often makes a difference in this world.
That's a really, really good way to look at it. So all that advocacy, all this work, it takes money to do this. So
yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about where your funding comes from and how do you engage your donors?
Yeah, so we've been very lucky from the beginning of the movement. There have been several key families in our state who understand that even if they are making investments in programs that are directly serving children or families, this is sort of a capstone on that if we can change policy, if we can change the way the system operates, it's really important to the things that they care about. And so the majority of our funding comes from a few key families in Florida. And then we've also over the years developed more relationships with national foundations who are interested in what happens in this space. But the most fun part is we've got more than 1,400 small donors who come in every year with those donations of $10, $25. And that fuels our work and our sense of being that movement.
So now let's shift a little bit and talk a little bit about your role as CEO. So what are some of the biggest challenges you faced during your tenure?
So we like to say at the movement that we embrace the challenge to make Florida the family-friendliest state in the nation. There are a lot of different ways that we think about that. But my own challenge in coming in as CEO is that I had an idea that I was inheriting an organization that was founded by Dave Lawrence, who's the former publisher of the Miami Herald, who's worked, 15 plus years, now 2 decades on this issue. And he had sort of convinced the state. And we got universal VPK passed, voluntary pre-kindergarten. Every 4-year-old has access to that. We've got in Palm Beach and in Miami, where I live, and other places, a Children's Services Council, where you're raising a lot of money every year to pour into children's issues. Like there are these big wins, like people are on board. And so I'm thinking I get to lead Movement 2.0. I get to stand on that and keep going. And then I realize that work doesn't stop. That's why the movement exists, because new leaders come in, new superintendents, new mayors, and so we just always have to keep engaging. And so that challenge of like going in with one idea and then shifting to say, we need to keep doing what the movement's already done and build on it at the same time. It meant we needed to really think about who's on the team and what are we focused on and look at growth in a different way.
So one of the programs that you've always championed is the Bosses for Babies program, right? Something that I know you've got leaders from all over the state that are involved in this program. So talk to us a little bit about that program. Tell me about it. Tell me more about it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for being a boss for babies, which you exemplify in so much of your leadership at the Chamber.
Thank you.
This is an initiative that is engaging business leaders in boosting their workforce and community prosperity at the same time. It's about changing the narrative on family-friendly practices to say this is not a cost for you, it is a benefit in the short term and the long term. And so through this initiative, we are highlighting bosses for babies, folks who are leading organizations who are making changes big and small that better support their workforce. And the whole idea is by championing what they are doing, by telling these stories, that it might just be opening up a space in your office to be a private lactation room because you have a need for a new mother on your team. It might be flexibility that you want everyone to know, if you've got a dance recital and you're missing it, it's not because of me, it's because of you. We have the kind of culture here that allows you to take this on. So some of it is those smaller things, and some is bigger things, like do we offer paid family leave in this organization, or do we have opportunities for flexible scheduling or predictable scheduling if you've really got the kind of job where you've got to be in person, which so many of our organizations do. And so it's really important that it is not one size fits all. It is not a mandate. It is giving a menu of all the different kinds of things and then telling those stories loudly so that businesses can see all the different ways they can participate. So
let's talk a little bit about impact, right? Specifically economic and workforce impacts, right? So talk to me, elaborate on how early childhood education impacts our workforce.
Yeah, it's always a dual impact. It's workforce of today and workforce of tomorrow. So the workforce of today, we have consistently the lowest unemployment rate in our state, about a whole point ahead of the rest of the country. And if you want to hire from the most diverse pool of applicants, if you want to have a more competitive workplace, you need to offer the kinds of benefits that invite parents into that workplace. And if parents are supported, the community is stronger. General stress levels are lower. There's sort of all kinds of things about the workforce today that contribute to increased retention, increased happiness, lower turnover, those kinds of things. And then workforce of tomorrow, because if children are being well cared for, nourished, and stimulated in their early learning programs, what do they learn in the 0 to 5 years? It's how to communicate, how to cooperate, how to focus on a task, how to manage your emotions, how to deal with disappointment, all the kinds of things that when those are not present, it blows up in the workplace. And so ensuring that families are supported, that children have these safe, nurturing environments is literally building the brains of that next generation that your workforce will benefit from in 18 to 20 years.
What about the Future Project? Tell me about that initiative.
Yeah, so the Future Project is in the community engagement bucket I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And this is one of our initiatives going deep into community and talking about what parents hope for, dream for, what they want for their children. And it started because we wanted to create a new agenda. We call it a roadmap for early learning policy and funding. But you can't get 10 parents in a room and say, what do you want to change in early learning policy? We really needed to have these conversations about their lives and their experiences and then draw out from that, what is it that we need in our systems? And so we spent 18 months, first 6 to 8 months going around the state, having these small dinners with groups of parents, groups of teachers who are working in early learning classrooms. And we just asked them those kinds of questions. What do you want? How did you choose the early learning center that your child is in? Are you happy with it? What do you wish existed? Even connecting to bosses for babies. Have you been able to go back to work? Do you want to? And so out of that, we then brought together a steering committee that was about 70% parents and educators. The balance of it were the typical system leaders, policy experts. And that group was tasked with taking everything we heard while we traveled around the state and putting it into recommendations for all of us, really, for policymakers, for business, for community. And then the promise that we made when we were going around the state was, we're going to take everything you've shared, and then we'll come back to you with our recommendations. And so that last phase of the project was taking the draft recommendations, bringing it back to the communities we visited, and others that we hadn't had a chance to visit, and asking, like, here's what we heard. This is what we're saying. What did we get right? What didn't we? And so now what we have in Florida's Early Learning Roadmap is 41 recommendations forward that range from supporting thriving parents to the early educator workforce that is respected to, system transformation. And it's sort of vetted by the stakeholders who we like to call proximity experts. You've got the policy experts, you've got the system experts, and you've got the proximity experts who are right there with the problem. And now this is guiding the policy work that we're doing in the early learning space.
Are you ready to bring your ribbon cutting to the next level? Introducing the Ribbon Cutting Ceremony Recap Video, your key to unforgettable event marketing. We know that each business is unique, and that's why we offer tailored solutions, starting with our basic package, where you can commemorate your event with elegance even without the video. But why stop there? Our comprehensive event coverage and premier business launch packages include the game-changing recap video, capturing every vibrant moment of your grand opening, from the ribbon cutting to impactful speeches, all in a stunning 1-minute video. Best of all, your event's highlights won't just linger in the memories of those who attended. Through our partnership with the Palm Beach North Chamber of Commerce, your video will be featured across multiple platforms. Expect to see your business shine on social media, in newsletters, and our website, and even the acclaimed Palm Beach North podcast. Don't let your special day fade away. Make it a monumental one with the Ribbon Cutting Ceremony Recap video and reach audiences beyond your wildest dreams. Ready to elevate your grand opening? For pricing and more details, email katie@pbnchamber.com or visit our website for more information. Make your event unforgettable. So let's talk about collaboration too, because you've mentioned collaboration a lot in our conversation already. You're the policy chair for the Miami-Dade Mayor's Blue Ribbon Commission for Children, right? So what have been some of the key outcomes? First of all, tell us a little bit about that organization, and then what have been some key outcomes out of that?
This is really special. So our mayor, Daniela Levine Cava in Miami-Dade County, made a promise to Dr. Will Bleckman on his deathbed that she would continue this work that he cared so much about. This is a guy who had founded, alongside Dr. Mimi Graham at FSU, the Florida Association for Infant Mental Health, really looking to change the way people view our babies and understand how to support them. He's also the kind of guy, he was one of a couple of people in the world. He's the reason we have iodized salt. Like he saw as a physician that children were lacking this essential nutrient and it was having negative impact. And so as a system thinker, he made that happen. And now we all know that Morton salt, and so he really wanted work to continue where we're asking those questions about systems and what needs to change. And so that group was formed. I co-chair the policy group, and it's really about the same thing I described that we're doing at the state level, that commission is doing at the local level, connecting with parents, elevating those stories, creating the priorities, and there's a whole lot of alignment. One of the things that we're looking at now is eligibility for school readiness. Now, this is a very confusingly named program. A lot of people know VPK, or voluntary pre-kindergarten. School readiness is the other early learning program that the state of Florida invests in. And you've got to be making under 150% of the federal poverty level to get into the program. You and I know in South Florida, if you are making that amount of money, we're talking 2 parents working minimum wage, you're already too wealthy to qualify for a childcare subsidy for working families. This is one of the greatest priorities that they're looking to impact. And it's the same for us at the state level. We want to see a school readiness program that matches the economic reality of our state.
So let's stay on collaboration, right? Advocacy is huge for you guys and what you do. How do you work with other organizations in Florida and nationally to really increase your advocacy efforts?
Yeah, well, in Florida, we work in partnership. We are on calls, Zooms, collaborative meetings, all the time, wanting to stay coordinated. And one of the things that my predecessor at the movement always talked about is that early childhood advocates can sometimes be like crabs in a bucket. It's like the moment a legislative change is about to come, there's perfect is the enemy of the good, and somebody else comes and yanks you down. And so that's just always been part of our philosophy of like, let's not do that anymore. Let's not be that stereotype. And so we work with so many partners locally. Early learning coalitions, children's services councils are among our top collaborators, the Florida Chamber, and wanting to, we believe you get more done when you're aligned in that way. And then nationally, we have a number of funders who've supported us with sort of learning networks across the country. And so I talk regularly to other CEOs of organizations like ours who are working in other states. We've got a group in particular working in red states of like, what are the different approaches to supporting families than some of the left-leaning think tanks might propose at the national level, and how do we get creative about supporting the values that we all share and make progress. And so the way we interact at the national level is more as a learning network, and at the local and state level, really much stronger collaboration.
All right, let's switch it up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about you.
Okay.
I'd love to hear your story. Tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what were you like as a kid?
Yeah. Well, so I have a funny name, I guess.
I can't pronounce it right.
And so I grew up in Miami. I still live on the same street I grew up on in Little Havana. And that is sort of a circuitous path. My parents are both from Connecticut, and I was born in Providence, Rhode Island. But my mother spoke multiple languages. And when we were born, she was teaching us French, which was sort of her favorite foreign language that she studied. And the story goes, she read in a magazine in the 80s that if your kids grew up in Miami, they would speak Spanish. So quite literally, she tugs my father by the shirt sleeve, says, the world is changing. We have to go. Can you imagine the opportunities our children will have if they can communicate across more of this globe? And this is a woman who was learning Esperanto back when the UN thought that a world language was all you needed for world peace. And so this is sort of the environment. Like, she wanted us to be able to connect with more people. And so, not surprisingly, having that kind of background, having that focus on language, I studied international affairs. I spent the first decade of my career working in Latin American policy and thinking I wanted to be an ambassador. But the truth is, Noelle, when I found out how much ambassadors have to toe party line, I didn't think that was quite the right place for me. And I was looking for a change in my career. I realized when I married someone who had chosen Miami and we bought a house on the street I grew up on, I was like, oh, wait, this is my community. I'm still sort of working abroad, but this is the place where I want to have impact. And so I came back to the movement, or found the movement at that time, and just totally fell in love with the issues. But this is who I was growing up too. I mean, a total nerd. I love to learn. I want to meet different people and talk to them and hear their stories. And what I have found now in this role is that I always thought I wanted to be an ambassador, and now I am. I'm an ambassador for babies. And that is so much of the way I could describe the work that I get to do at the movement.
How has being a mom influenced that?
It's been pretty important. I am so grateful. We didn't plan it this way, but shortly after I came to the movement, I had my first child, and I now have two boys who are just 6 and almost 4. And I think it's sort of, there's a universal experience of being a mother. We joke about it all the time that there is no manual, they don't come with a guidebook. Ugh. And that can be so incredibly stressful. And you don't know what to do, and you don't know where to turn. And I have found that, being with other parents is one of the best ways to learn. You see how other parents interact, how they deal with challenging behaviors. And so what happened when I have my second son in September of 2020, it's like everything was more insular. We didn't have the same support network and people coming and going and all of that. And all of those struggles that you face as a parent, first of all, it makes it much easier for me to connect with other parents across varied life circumstances, because there's also so much that we share. Mm-hmm. And there's also probably something in our genetic code that changes when we become parents, and you become so much more sensitive to a lot of things. And I definitely experienced some of that.
Yeah, there's no doubt being a parent really changes the way you look at everything.
Yes.
Everything.
I started driving more slowly, I noticed.
Oh my gosh. So you've had a huge diverse background, right? You worked with kids in Chicago. You're leading a statewide movement now. What leadership lessons have really stood out the most to you throughout your career?
I think the most important one is that it is all about relationships. It is, if you want to get anything done, you've got to have people who like you and will pick up the phone, or at least people who respect you. And, I remember being younger in my career and thinking it was about saying the right thing or about showing up in the right way. And it's just all about relationships. It's how do you cultivate that? How do you truly care about other people and really connect with them and understand them? And that is the one that is most important, that continues to come back.
All right, let's look into the future. Let's go back to the movement, talk a little bit about the movement. What do you see are going to be some of the biggest challenges that you guys are going to face and that you're going to need to overcome in the next, 5-10 years?
We want to do big things. We come, as I mentioned, from the legacy of creating VPK and establishing what's called the Children's Trust, our Children's Services Council in Miami. We've had a number of wins over the years in increasing funding, an extra $100 million in early learning just last year in the legislative session. But what our roadmap stipulates is really quite a bit bigger than that. It's about supporting parents in their mental health. It's about recognizing teachers. When some of your listeners might, when you say early learning, they think preschool, they think, daycare, which to us is a dirty word you should never say. They might think babysitting, and that is not it. And if we are going to get to the level that we're investing in early education, similar to our investments in primary education, in secondary education, in higher education, that is a big shift we're going to need people to come on board with, that there is nothing babysitting about this. Early education looks a lot like care. There's some diaper changing, there's some comforting, there's some, teaching about emotions, and all of that is education, and all of that pays off in the long run. And so looking ahead to the future, we want to see children really having access to that kind of opportunity. And you probably know these numbers already, but in Florida and in Palm Beach County, 50% of children not ready for kindergarten, and only 54% reading by third grade.
And those numbers are up.
They're up.
We were so happy because they jumped up about 6% for us here in Palm Beach County.
But that's still more than 6,700 kids not reading by third grade. And what I always think of when you look at kindergarten readiness versus third grade reading, 50%, 54% in this county, it's the same children. And what it tells you is if you start behind, it is really hard to catch up. And so why are we not doing more to get that 50% up so our K-3 teachers can do their jobs? And you see it time and again. If you're investing in those high quality opportunities, especially for the children who are most struggling or most at risk, it's not about whether your parents are working. We don't do that in elementary school. If your parents aren't working, you stay home. We've never told families that. And so, yes, there's a childcare element to it, but it's early education. There's also a childcare element to our elementary school, but that's very clearly education in our state. And so we want to bring early learning along with it.
Tell me a little bit about your top priorities in the near future for the movement. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So we're growing Bosses for Babies. We want to be in all 67 counties with businesses of all sizes to show this is not just something like a Tampa General who can afford to have on-site childcare, and their CEO is a champion too, a boss, one of our Bosses for Babies. It's not just about those kinds of benefits. There are things at all sizes that companies can take on. So we're growing that initiative. We are revolutionizing the early childhood systems and early learning in particular. And then we're also exploring like what are the other solutions to supporting parents, and where our view in the past was, parent support means you need to know where to go when you have information, when you need information about your child's development, when you have questions about the milestones and things like that. Increasingly, it's about recognizing, as I said earlier, you don't transform the life of a child without touching the adults who are most important to them.
So we've got to start to wrap things up here a little bit, but I definitely want to ask you about one last question. What kind of advice would you give someone that really wants to make an impact in the field of early learning?
Any person or a particular profile of person?
Any person. How do we make a difference?
Yeah, I think in this election year, you show up and vote. You understand that we've got a big national election getting a lot of attention, but we've got 120 seats in the state house and 20 of the 40 Senate seats up for election. And these are the people who are going to decide on these issues. And so get to know the facts, figure out, go to the FloridaScorecard.org.
Yes.
Get those facts that, in Palm Beach County, 6,700 kids not reading by third grade. You can drill that down to your local elementary school and call up your elected officials to let them know, we've got 60 kids at this school who are not reading by third grade, and we need you to do something about it, and it starts early. I think and everyone can do that, whether you're a business leader, a parent, a teacher, your voice matters, your vote matters. So I have to say that in an election year. And other than that, it's about getting the information about what's really happening and sharing it. I think the reason we are a movement and so much of our ethos is that this is a message that needs to spread, and we will make better decisions when we are better informed.
So is there anything we've forgotten? Anything that I haven't asked that I should have? Anything that we haven't thought about?
I don't have anything top of mind. Went so fast.
It did. I told you to go by really, really quick.
Yeah.
So where can someone get more information on the children's movement?
So www.childrensmovementflorida.org. It's a bit of a mouthful.
It is a lot.
and we are on Instagram, Child Movement FL, and Facebook and LinkedIn. And those are the best places to find us.
Well, I appreciate you coming all the way up from Miami today to do this interview with us. You were awesome. I appreciate all the work. We're very thankful for the work that you're doing in our community. You've been great. I'm proud to be one of the bosses for babies. I think it's important. Letting people know what's going on is so important. You mentioned it, right? If more people knew that only 52% of our kids are reading at the third grade level, or third graders are reading at their grade level, we would be making a difference. And I think awareness is so important. So tell all your friends, tell everybody, together, I know that we could really make an impact together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for coming in. Thank you so much for tuning in again to the Palm Beach North podcast. Special thanks to our friends at Tampa General Hospital for supporting and making this happen. Please share, follow, tell all your friends about all the amazing things going on in Palm Beach North. We look forward to seeing you soon. See you in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.